All my life, all I ever heard was, "Your mother, she always wanted a daughter." And that's me. And this is my family. I was born in 1976, and I have two older brothers. And I grew up in a house outside of Chicago with my family. The first 7 years of my life were very utopian and very close to perfect. Beautiful backyard, beautiful sunny days and beautiful winters and swings and monkey bars and Beatles music and classical music and, beautiful mom, beautiful dad, beautiful family. I went to a good school. I had wonderful friends. I was pretty. People were nice to me. I had beautiful clothes. I got along with my mom and my dad. And I had my moments, like my brother picking on me and stuff, but just, it was wonderful. I could draw. I went to school. I was a good student. And I was just having the time of my life. One thing I didn't know is that everybody loved me in the family, but everybody in the family pretty much hated each other. My mom and my dad didn't get along, and my brothers and my mom didn't get along. And of course, I did notice things towards the end of my 7 years of this utopian life, but they also hid it from me pretty well. And so one day when I was 8 years old, I was riding my bike and I made my way home, came into the house was empty, went into my bedroom, and then I heard all this noise outside. And so I go and look in the window, and everybody in my family is outside, plus my grandfather and my aunt and my uncle, and everybody was fighting, and everybody was yelling, and everybody was screaming. And this was going on in my beautiful backyard, and I'm looking out my window where the Concord grapes are growing, and, there's just this big, dramatic blow-up fight. And everybody's yelling. And my grandfather looks at me, and he says, "You stay in the house. You stay in the house." My brother had a knife in the doorway, and my other brother jumped out the window, and there was all this stuff going on. I didn't know exactly what was happening, except, wow, tension had blown. So my mom packed up her things, and she left. She went to my grandmother's house, her mom's house. Everybody, my grandfather and my aunt went with her. And so there I was, with my dad and my two brothers, and we're all in shock. The family seriously just broke up. For me, overnight. For them, it was probably just a matter of time. So she left, and I wanted to go with her, but there was not enough room at my grandmother's house, so I got to stay with my dad and my brothers, and I was utterly in shock. It was the first time I felt a sense of major, serious trauma, and I didn't know how to handle it. I just tried to go on with my life. Like, this happened in the end of summer. I tried to go back to school and stuff, but it was just very weird and awkward, and I didn't know how to make sense of any of it. It wasn't even involving really me. I missed my mom so much. We would talk on the phone, and we would visit on the weekends. And yet I was just feeling so torn from her. It was very natural for me to want to be with both parents, and it was hard to choose. And at the end of the visit, it would just be so hard. I'd scream, and I'd cry myself to bed when I get home, and, suddenly school, 3rd grade was just awful. I was a very different kid, and suddenly all these bullies showed up, and I didn't like school, and so for me, choosing between my parents was really hard. I ended up with my mom again, and then I went to go stay with her. That ended up lasting a year, and then I moved back in with my dad, and by this time it was 1987. So I'd gone back and forth so many times. I didn't know how to express myself. I was confused. I was eating all this microwave food, and then my older brother suddenly was like a teenager, and he was all strong, and he was like beating me up after school, and so I'd go to school with bruises. By this time I was 11, and I was just really confused. Didn't know how to express myself. It was just very different. I had a hard time adjusting, and my dad and I got along, and yeah, I did have some happy moments, but I was just not knowing how to express myself as a human. And by the time summer of 87 came along, I got really, really sick, broke out into sores, had diarrhea, was running to the bathroom, didn't know what was going on, and little did I know that was the start of the ulcer. So in 87, I went back to live with my mom, but it was different this time. Mom was really, really different. We've always been close, and she's always been so sweet. But this time she was like really sad and confused, and odd behavior. And when I look back on it, she was probably just having like a mental breakdown. And when I was 12, my mom pretty much went crazy in front of me, talking all funny, doing these odd things, having these odd behaviors, having these weird routines, doing crazy things with her clothes, suddenly dressing in all black. And she didn't want me to tell anybody I was like that, and I didn't. But it really had a messed up effect on me, and just made my mental health not well. And at the same time, they put me in Catholic school. And then there was all this religion that was being forced on me because I wasn't baptized. I had never taken communion, and suddenly I'm thrusted into Catholic school because it was, considered to be a peaceful place for me to go to school. And the nuns, they liked me, but they knew that I just wasn't like the other kids, and I got a lot of flack for not being baptized, and there was all this pressure in the family for not being baptized on my mom's side of the family. And then, after my mom started showing like her crazy side, she just couldn't handle hearing me at all, so she always said children should be seen and not heard. We had a break from this madness for about 8 months. My mom got a job in Connecticut, and we got on a Greyhound bus and went to Connecticut. It was the first time I saw mountains. It was the first time I saw the ocean, which made me think ahead for my life that I'm going to eventually leave Chicago and go someplace in nature. And shoots, Connecticut was so beautiful, so peaceful. My mom was acting a lot kinder in certain ways, and it was only 8 months, but it changed my life. My grandfather had died, and my grandmother was alone, and so we went back to Chicago to go stay with her, and I was really sad to leave Connecticut. It was one of the most peaceful times of my life, which had a really good influence on me to make a choice to go to Hawaii later on. So we drove through, the Appalachian Mountains, through the Poconos. We drove from Connecticut to Chicago. Beautiful drive, if you've ever done it. And suddenly, this is the chapter of my life where I'm living at my grandmother's house. And, I had aunts and cousins on my mom's side of the family, and they were very Christian, very Catholic. They thought I was crazy. They thought my mom was crazy. They thought I was a heathen. I didn't say things like, yes, ma'am, and I'd never taken communion, and I'd never been baptized. So suddenly, getting a lot of issues on my mom's side of the family for not being like them. I lived in the basement, and a lot of them pretty much would, hang out upstairs. I never really fit in, even when I tried to hang out upstairs. And, that's where my bedroom was, the basement. So I would always hear them talking shit about me, like the devil, they should hit me, I should go to church, and all the things I did wrong that I'd never done that they'd made up in their own mind. And, the relatives loved me, but they hated me. They treated me like shit, even though they said they loved me. And grandmother just hated me. So I'm 14, and this is family. And I thought to myself, if this is family, I'd rather be alone. And I started really isolating myself a lot in the basement, and I became very depressed. One thing that helped me was music. And, it just got me through the madness. I listened to classic rock and a lot of rock and roll. Finally, it got to the point where it was just too much, and my dad got me out of there. My mom got a house, and we moved in. And high school got better, but I was just a very withdrawn person from having gone through so much trauma, and I was also, a teenager with an ulcer, so I was just very much like an alien, and I kept to myself, and I made a lot of art, and I focused on music, and that made it better. I was out of my grandmother's house, and I was with my mom, but suddenly my mom and me were alone, and she was still going crazy. And she had her share of trauma, but she had never resolved it, so she projected a lot of that in my direction. I understand that, but, I was a teenager. I could have used a lot of encouragement instead of all that, darkness and criticism, and it had a huge effect on me. So, okay, age 11, 12, 13, 14 pass. Finally, I go to see a doctor about all this blood I'm shitting out. My mom thought I was going to get my moon cycles, so this doctor was really mean. And so he said, you're going to have to get colonoscopy, but, we're not going to give you anesthesia. So I'm on the table and, I have a colonoscopy and a biopsy without anesthesia. And the picture on the right is me gripping onto the table. And he's like, stop shaking, I'm not done yet. And it's like, shit, I'm only 14. Have some freaking, kindness towards, a kid who's got a fucking disease. And yeah, when I was 18, I tried to kill myself and take some pills. My mom was going crazy. You can only take so much of this. And by 19, something had changed. I was starting to just be an individual and remember something good about myself. And I was doing that through art, and suddenly all these new people popped up in my life, and I went vegetarian. I had vegan friends, and this was the time in my life where I wondered, what is important to me? And I was always told it was like school and money and getting married, and I was really confused. I tried to go to college, I tried to get jobs, I tried to have partners, and then I realized that, I was not feeling good because I needed to heal. So I'm on the phone with my friend from childhood who's living in Hawaii, and she's having culture shock and wants to leave. She says, Hawaii'd be good for you, though. So it took some time. I got on a plane to Hawaii so I could heal myself and heal from this ulcer. And I was overwhelmed by the beauty of this place and got my first job over there, second job over there, got my first apartment, raw food chef, working in the salad bar. And while I was working there one day, I met the man that I didn't know would be the love of my life. I met Vaughn. And, we had some encounters. I said hi to him, and we started hanging out, started spending time together, and we grew in love. And we were together for a short time because, I was still sick. I still had to heal, and I hadn't even gotten started on my healing journey. And I knew a lot was going to come up, and I was scared, and I had a lot to deal with, and I didn't want that to affect him. I had so much respect for him that I chose to separate in the relationship so I could have this time to myself. And, I spent a lot of time alone. I had a lot of work. I was focusing on myself. My weight went up and down 5, 10, 15, 20 pounds. I would get depressed. I had everything of every kind of feeling going on, that I needed that time for myself. Lots of time. And then, I started getting better with the raw foods, and things were turning around. I just needed a lot of time to heal from the unresolved issues that I had had. So, I'm living on Maui, and I'm spending a lot of time alone. I'm going to the beach, and I'm working. And, when I was 27, the ulcer left my body. I had a spiritual breakthrough. I cut my hair off. I got tattoos. I lost a lot of weight. Vaughn and I crossed paths, like a year and a half later, and we fell in love and got back together, or we resumed the love. And this time, I was able to be the woman that I wanted to be with him. And though at the same time, something was different about Vaughn and his behavior. And then he broke up with me. And it was odd, just odd. And then we became best friends, and he was writing me all these love songs, and things were going very, very uniquely with our friendship. And through our ups and downs, we grew very close. We had been through a lot in the amount of time that we had known each other, and our bond was amazing. And so I got offered a job to work at a David Wolf permaculture retreat on the Big Island of Hawaii, and that's what got me to move over here. So this retreat was about 3 weeks long, and it was 2 of us as the chefs. David Wolf was there, and it was really, really fun. And at the end of the retreat, I get this phone call, and I was told that Vaughn had died. He had gotten hit by a car. I went into complete shock. And soon after that, life just carried me to California and Chicago and Big Island in a year. And then I started my quest on my 30s of just resolving myself. And during this time, my mom and I had gotten close again. And this is the time of my 30s, the decade where I spent a lot of time unplugged from the world, resolving all the unresolved things in a deeper way. And, I was going to have my mom come and move into Hawaii as well. And so there was this period when I was 37 where I was calling my mom, and I called her for 6 days in a row, and she wasn't answering the phone. So I called the Chicago police, and 1 hour later, they got back to me and said, "Hey, we're sorry, your mom passed away. She had a heart attack in her apartment." And so, that threw me into utter, complete shock. I lost my mom. My mom had died, and ever since then, I've just been recuperating. So that was 2 years ago. So for the last 2 years, I've just been dealing with depression and anxiety, and just taking a lot of effort to look in the mirror and love myself, because I have been through a lot. And right now is pretty much a time of my life where I'm recuperating, because I've been through a lot and I've healed a lot, but I also have come through so much trauma. So this is a time where I'm taking a lot of care of myself. And yeah, the loss of my mom has been so utterly shocking that it's just forced me to love myself in ways that I've never known before, especially with the upbringing that I had where I was criticized so much. And so it's just taking a lot of effort for me to be me.